It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
After weeks of avoiding the inevitable, Boris Johnson has resigned as British Prime Minister.
Is this the wildest political moment we've lived through?
What kind of damage has he done to the country, and who will take over after him?
He's someone who's got 9 lives, right, in many senses, and has breeded a real sense of loyalty amongst cabinet members, which I don't think I've ever seen before.
That Boris Johnson is literally the worst thing that's happened to politics.
In this episode, Mike is joined by ex-civil servant Harry Phinda as they talk about Boris Johnson, the man who set our country on fire.
I want more than just a piece. Wanna be heard from the west to the east. I worked in my craft and I prayed for my time on the scene. The man have never left my team. 19, learned the right creed. Nah, I'm not a right breed, but I might be. In my crease, Nikes, hit up my G. I'll still never sell out my theme. Well, you know about heritage, you go inherited. Don't chill with the snakes, but the flow's still venomous. Perspective is everything. So much lemonade, I don't know what a lemon is.
That was good. Do you know what it is? Keir Starmer's speeches are better read out
Than
him saying
it.
Yeah,
but I thought he did. You know what? Bearing in mind, I've been quite critical of him. I thought he did really well yesterday.
I think it does well. But when I listen to what he's saying, and I read maybe I read Hansard or I read the transcripts, I'm like, this is powerful.
Yeah, of course.
But when he delivers it, he has that kind of
lawyery,
matter of fact, and it doesn't really like someone like a Tony Blair has that emotional thing, you know.
Of course.
Anyways, how are you doing, Harry?
Good, thank you. Good to see you, Mike.
You're alive.
100%.
Now, so much has happened.
Yep.
Over the past few hours.
Literally.
I think we ought to collectively just inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
This episode is all about, politics, what's happening with the Conservative Party, British politics.
Yep.
I had a call with a friend of mine who's Canadian just a few minutes ago, and he called me because we had a catch-up scheduled, and I called him, I was like, I can't catch up with you. There's so much happening here. Like, the UK's on fire. And he was kind of like, what happened? And I just told him everything that happened. He was like, all of that in the last day. And I said, yeah, it is that crazy.
Wow.
So, it's crazy times. But before we jump into everything, tell people who you are, what you do, so they get a sense of what's going on. Because this is what we do all the time, just talk politics, but you can give them a bit more context.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Harry. I was born in Zimbabwe, grew up in South Africa, and came to the UK when I was 12. So not too far from here, actually, in Croydon.
Really?
Which is, yes,
you
not
made
too
it
far.
out of Croydon.
I did indeed, and I made it out of my school as well. It's quite funny when I tell people what school I went to in Croydon.
What school did you go to in Croydon?
Well, it's called Hailing Manor, but like, oh yeah, we wouldn't know that exactly. You wouldn't know that, but yeah. So I have been really interested in politics ever since then. Really, so had a teacher who came in to teach us citizenship, and from there, like, I just sparked a real passion and interest in politics.
Yeah.
We got to school, I remember, at 4 a.m. to watch Barack Obama's inauguration. Like, it was really serious.
I remember that day.
I know, it was a great day, wasn't it? Look where we are now. But anyway, so I'm really, so I did that, and I've sort of worked in Parliament a little bit. So I spent a year and a half there working for a MP. I then did politics as a degree, and then I since have worked for the Conservative Friends for International Development. I've worked in the Cabinet Office. I've worked in the Home Office.
Yeah.
For Preeti Patel, and then
no,
and then now, well, as a civil servant, so I wasn't political.
Okay.
I always have to clarify that. I feel like.
Hold on, before you go on.
Yes.
Preeti Patel in one word.
I can't do one word, but what I would say is she is a career politician.
Got you.
And that's it. And if you understand her in that vise, you understand everything, for me.
Yeah.
I think if you understand the fact that she really wants to reach the top.
Yeah.
And everything she does is seen through that lens, then you understand
makes
why
more
she
sense.
is. And also, we don't need to sort of go over or point out the obvious, but the media always have some sort of agenda or like some vibe that they look at people at.
Yeah.
And I think with her, they've pointed her out as a villain, and that's
but
the
you know,
reality.
it's crazy. It seems like she
Plays
clearly
it well.
enjoys it.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know, like I said it before, like if you're in charge of the Home Office, it is a poison chalice. Most
Yep.
you know, Home Office, most
Home sex.
home sex. Like Blunkett, I remember Blunkett, even Theresa May, they keep a low profile.
Yep.
They, you know, they just kind of, they stay out of the limelight. They don't really use social media because let's be honest, you can't deport people properly. Like no one's gonna say, "Oh, look at nice deport."
Well,
But she's always online. Remember when she's wearing that jacket, going to like, she likes it.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you know, that's what she's been assigned to do, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got a Conservative Party who are tough on immigration and have a woman of color who is tough on immigration.
Oh, they love that.
Of course.
Works well. But sorry, I interrupted you.
Sorry.
Finish your introduction.
Anyway, so I work there, and I've just recently moved out. I'm now working in the private sector, working consulting. So specifically public affairs consulting, but also the bit of management consulting as well. So did that purposefully, I think. I didn't want to get away just a little bit. I mean, I'll probably go back at some point.
Really? And do you reckon it'll be in the civil service again, or do you think it's going to be party political?
That's a big question mark as to what's next, really. I mean...
Spoken like a true politician. He's ready, isn't he?
Oh,
it's like,
gosh.
I love it when they ask politicians questions and they go, that's the question.
That's the
And I'm like,
question.
that I asked you. So do you wanna...
We'll see. I mean, I'm not pointing out anything quite yet.
Super.
I mean, yeah. And also, to be fair, I'm just waiting for this sort of wave of politics to go, really, because it's a bit, as we've talked about before. Now, numerous chats. It's the battle of the extremes at the moment, isn't it?
It's a lot. We're going left and right, and you know, full disclosure for folks who are listening and watching, we talk about politics all the time. We're friends outside of this, so this is something we talk about all the time. I'm not too sure where we sit politically. I would say we probably are both, you know, skeptics and observers, and you know, I couldn't say I'm a diehard anything.
Yeah,
I'm a member of a political party, and I've been since I was 13.
Yep.
I'll let people guess which one, but I can't say I'm you know, I believe in one thing over the other. One thing I do believe, and I have believed for a long time, is that Boris Johnson is literally the worst thing that's happened to politics. I've been saying that for a long time.
Really?
I supported David Cameron at the beginning, so it's not a party political thing.
Yeah.
I just think he's so cheap and tacky that my suspicion was that when this guy goes into politics, he's gonna cheapen the office. He's gonna debase the office, and slowly but surely he did so. He slowly did it, and so I believe that. I don't know what you think about Boris Johnson. Let's start there. What are your thoughts on him before we go into what's happened, what's next, and all these kind of moving parts?
Yeah, so I probably didn't have the same view necessarily right at the start. I think he has been able to captivate very many different audiences in politics who previously probably would not have engaged, right?
Yeah.
I think when he was mayor, I think he was able to do that job, you know, with some level of dignity, I would probably say. I mean, obviously,
like when he was hanging off the zip line and waving the flags,
and waving the flags, you know, and obviously, you know, stealing, like dramatically stealing the sort of Boris bike idea from Ken Livingstone, as everyone says. But what I would say is, I think he was a great ambassador for the city, which clearly, that's half of your job as the mayor.
True.
You have to be, and has been able to not necessarily create London in terms of what it is, but really, you know, embrace the sort of cultural hub that London is.
Yeah.
100%. And so I think I really liked him when he was, you know, mayor, and I think he did his job well. I don't know. So when he decided to move into politics, I was like, oh wow, this is like a serious job. Not that the London mayor job is not serious, but I think, you know, when you now move into sort of political power and you have significant budget behind you and you are in charge of policy, I think it starts to get a bit scary when you have someone like Boris, who, you know, to many people, like, you know, is a sort of lad you can go down to the pub with. That's the appeal that he gives, right? Right, that's the appeal. And clearly we're living in an era where politicians are or successful politicians,
Yeah.
even if we look across the pond at Donald Trump, need to be somewhat abrasive and unfiltered for people to really connect with them.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm hoping that what the last few years has been is a crazy experiment that we never try again. Because I'm like you, like for years I've been hearing this political engagement thing. We need to get more people engaged. In fact, literally, I was a loser at 13 as a member of youth parliament myself, campaigning to get youth engagement up.
Precisely.
I think what I haven't realized and being older is at what cost and what type of engagement.
Yep.
Because I cannot lie, seeing people storm the US Capitol to try and thwart democracy, not the kind of engagement I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing us on the verge of a constitutional crisis because there's this guy who's deluded into thinking he's got a mandate from the word mandate, I don't ever want to hear it again.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's been tainted completely.
He's just said, because we had record voter turnout, because the Conservative Party got the highest voter share they've had since 1983, whatever it's 87. He now believes that engagement means, irrespective of having no cabinet, he must carry on. So now I'm thinking, engagement is good, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Like, we, and what type of engagement do we want? Because how can you look at what's happened over the last few days, and we probably should go into that, and not just feel sad about British democracy. Now, I am, again, an idealist. I love democracy. I love this country. When I looked at the events over the past few days, I genuinely was really, really sad because he clearly has no sense of public duty. And I just want to jump to you and say, how would you characterize the last few days that we've seen, I guess altogether, to catch people up? Yes, he survived the vote of no confidence, albeit by very slim margin.
Barely.
And then he what does he do? What happens after that? I'm trying to get the timeline right.
Chris Pinter.
Then Pincher happens.
Yeah.
What an unfortunate name, right?
I know.
Shouldn't make a joke about that, but it's quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
So Pincher happens. Deputy Chief Whip has a history of just inappropriate behavior.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson apparently was briefed on Pincher before promoting him to this new position. Initially, he says the thing, "Oh, what? No way, I never knew." Then they came back and he said, "Oh, actually, I didn't know it was serious." Then he's like, "Okay, I didn't know." And turns out all along he was lying. And so now Pincher resigns and is disgraced, and everyone's angry at Boris Johnson. But part of me wonders, why is this the straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Even with for people at home, there were multiple resignations from cabinet members.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought he's someone who's got 9 lives, right? In many senses, and has breeded a real sense of loyalty amongst cabinet members, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Don't you
think it was similar to what we saw with folks supporting Jeremy Corbyn? They had that blind, messianic kind of...
Yeah, of course. And I think... even everyone standing on a high horse now, sending their resignation letters in, has been a bit sort of cringe, really, because if you think about Partygate, if you think about even the proroguement of Parliament, all of those things were really, really really bad and really and so if I was to sum up the last couple of days, I think really we're in a scary place. I was really surprised that people weren't on the streets.
So was I. But we're just tired, mate, and it costs too much. There's a cost of living crisis. So I think people just thought, ban it.
And I actually think it's apathy. I think people are they're just so tired. And they're just so disengaged to the point where they're like, look, this doesn't make sense. They're making my life worse at the moment, obviously by, the tax rises that we've seen. So there is this sort of real disengagement from politics that I think we haven't seen in a long time. And that's part of the reason why I think people just think, well...
Do you know what it is? It's so interesting because it's, we kind of call him, and I tweeted it, that he's like a pound shop Trump in a way, because because there is
Not light with your words, are you?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't think it was possible to be cheaper than Trump. Trump is so tacky. I mean, let's not even go there. But what's quite interesting to me is, I don't want to. I think it's almost too easy, and it's the done thing to be like, he's like a British Trump, whatever.
Yeah.
Hence why I didn't want to say it. However, where it is similar is that Trump's playbook, and I think Trump was deliberate in doing this, was let me just dial up the volume of nonsense.
Yeah.
So much so that folks are just confused. They don't even know which one to start with, what scandal to pick. So they just kind of become apathetic and go whatever.
Yeah.
People start calling him Trump and start calling him all these kind of funny names and stuff like that. Boris Johnson's the same thing. I was listening to LBC, and someone called in, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like Bojo," and I was like, "Bojo?
Yeah.
What is that?" He's the prime minister of the country. His name is Boris Johnson. But by calling him Bojo, you see him as kind of harmless,
of course.
fun, comical guy. And then because of all the outrage and all the kind of issues and issues upon issues upon issues, people are just tired. Like, where do you start with Boris Johnson? The fact that we don't know how many children he has, the fact that he's routinely unfaithful in his private life and just rancid sex life. Is it the fact that, as you said, he's tried to thwart democracy so many times? Is it the fact that he tried to use money, government money, essentially, to build a treehouse for East? I mean, where do we? Apparently, even he's staying now. I just read that one of the reasons he wants to stay is because apparently he's planning to have a wedding in Chequers in 3 weeks with his wife.
Interesting.
So obviously, you won't have access to it if he's not prime minister. But if he is, and I'm thinking, where do I begin?
Yeah. I think, you know what?
It's like I'm talking to my therapist.
What do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? I'm sure you could sort of lay down in your seat and tell me all your thoughts as well. I think, if I'm honest, I think one of the things that he has been able to really do is to just hoodwink a huge sort of vast of the population that he is not the elite of elite. And so even if you think about that for a second, you know, the fact that, you have people who, not people who actually care about policy and politics like me and you do, but other people who literally say, I could go for a drink with him, and not really understanding that drink, oftentimes will be a sort of, martini stirred not shaken, rather than a pint down the road, because he's he's obviously Unitonian, and he carries that in a way for me that previous, maybe David Cameron, for example, didn't necessarily carry that, and was able to really relate to people on a real way and not necessarily this sort of caricature that he's created. So I think I think it's fair to say that we're not surprised at where we are now, especially as you've listed. I mean, even, and maybe this is sort of revealing my real sort of like...
there we go.
This is revealing my real conservative sort of like beliefs. But even the fact that we had a prime minister that was not married and didn't...
I think that's... I think that's quite wild.
Yeah.
I still think that's wild.
And that was a first, that was... And maybe that's us going into the 21st century.
People just brushed past it. I just found that such an issue.
Yeah.
Not married. It was like Boris Johnson and his girlfriend. And I was just like...
Yeah. And obviously, and don't get me wrong, like, that's probably because of our beliefs and where we're from, but
it's convention, Harry.
I know. But because again, what we can't, I guess what we can't sort of mistake, particularly for this time, is the fact that times are moving on. That's the reality. And so we could at one point have a single woman who is a British Prime Minister. That is something which is on the way if we keep going on this trajectory.
Yeah.
For the Conservative Party, I'm not too sure. I think that might be a bit too much, but
we'll
see.
I think they would do it before the Labour Party for sure.
Wow, that's really I disagree.
The way Conservative membership is set up, I mean, let's not forget, it's the same Conservatives that legalize gay marriage.
Yes, of course.
But also every first, whether it's black ministers, whether it's the Conservatives. The Labour Party just doesn't... Let's not talk about momentum. let's not talk about momentum and the stranglehold it has on the party and just how the Labour Party membership is set up. But one thing I was wondering, though, when all this was happening, so literally this morning I was trying to have a shower, but I was just literally glued to my laptop, just waiting for the Prime Minister to come out and speak and whatever. And I just thought to myself, I think the first big political moment I remember following, like really closely, was probably Barack Obama's election, in 2008. I had obviously been interested in politics before, but I remember watching that very, very closely and watching the debates and being like, oh my God, like whatever. I just thought, okay, is this the wildest political moment we've lived through?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you've got the Iraq War in there as well, I think.
True. But we were very young. That was
No, I
2004.
know. Yeah, no, I know. But I remember. I guess I remember when 9/11
marching?
happened. No, I didn't march. No.
Like young Harry with a placard. Don't do
Well,
it.
Yeah, exactly.
There are no weapons of mass destruction.
So no, I think it's close. Obviously Brexit is another one, which really was.
Brexit rocked me to my
100%.
to my core.
There are 2 times in my life when I've woken up, looked at my phone, kissed my teeth, and just slammed the phone down, and so that was then,
Brexit.
and that was the Trump election, of course.
Okay.
So I think this was probably I followed this very, very closely, and I was very surprised at just how long it was going for, if I'm honest with you.
Likewise.
And for me, I think really Partygate for me was the sort of nail in the coffin, which was okay, cool, school's out. Okay, you need to clearly you need to resign.
Yeah.
And I was just absolutely fascinated by the fact that, even after the no confidence vote, and bearing in mind, it took a long time for the no confidence for them
to get there.
for them to get there, and the letter threshold to be.
Yeah.
So I was just so confused as to how this is possible. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about it in a minute, but it's not as if they are sitting there with no sort of leadership.
There's lots of people there.
There's lots of people there who could take this on. But I think, like we've talked about a second ago, there is this sort of cult-like aura that Boris Johnson carries, which I think really had come from, the sort of Brexit trailblazer, Leave campaign that's carried him throughout this whole period, and has made him, relentless. And I think part of it is his mindset that the normal political rules do not apply to him.
Do you know what? So that is it. If I'm honest with you, I actually don't credit Boris Johnson too much. I don't think he's that politically talented, because he actually lacks the what do you call it? The when people can kind of assess a situation, the instincts. That's the one. He lacks the instinct because we've been tired of him for a long time, but he doesn't know it, so he's deluded, right? And delusion's never good in politics. Yeah. What I think really is happening is the system, the British system, isn't set up for a figure like Johnson. So someone who's that bullish. Our democracy is all about kind of decency and standards and ethics and things like that. And to have somebody who has none of those things, who genuinely is shameless, he actually has no shame. I mean, random story that Rory Stewart spoke about. When Boris Johnson was essentially fired or let go from as foreign secretary, what happens normally when you resign or you're let go is literally move-in vans come and you leave the same day. He stayed for 4 weeks in the same house.
Wow.
When they were pressing him as to why, one of the reasons is because apparently where he was moving to, he didn't want to pay rent. So he essentially stayed there. So he's just classless and just crass and doesn't have that kind of dignity that's needed for the British system to operate. So what we've seen, and the reason I call it a thought experiment or wild experiment, is we've seen someone who lacks all the things needed for the system to work walk into the system. And I think what we've seen is lots of other politicians trying to just work out what's going on, trying to calibrate, for instance, okay, you win the no confidence vote, but now you know that almost just about half of your party don't believe in you. Normally, you just go, I have to resign.
Yeah.
No, or for instance, your chancellor resigns.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to go.
Yeah.
But he just thinks, no, I can carry on. And I think people are just trying to work out how far he can actually push the system.
Right.
Till someone has to come and tap him on the shoulder and go, all right, mate, time to go. And even now, with his stupid speech, he doesn't even really say he's resigning.
No, he doesn't.
He kind of talks about it. I'll be here until the new person comes. We're gonna change the country. And you're like, bro.
Yeah, of course.
Say I'm resigning.
Yeah.
Make your speech as short as Gordon Brown. Couple of sentences. Grab your wife's hands and your kids and get out of there.
Yeah, of course.
But he doesn't do that. So do you reckon we need to think about? I don't think a fixed constitution will be what solves this, but. Is there something about our system that can't handle mavericks like this, basically?
Yeah, and I mean, even the fact that the 1922 committee had come and were considering changing the rules for a no confidence vote, for me, already signals to the fact that, there has to be things that are moved. Now, the problem is where do you get a solution like that?
Yeah.
Do you make the civil service stronger? Which already people are, wanting to reform and wanting to change. And again, some of those frustrations are because the engine doesn't move quick enough for fast decisions and people like that.
Yeah.
Really, that's what Dominic Cummings was trying to do for a long time. So I do think we need some sort of safeguards for this. The problem is, I think when you put the vote to the people, more and more we're going to see more leaders like this. I think, as much as and me and you both know that this is not the end of Trump at all whatsoever. And we
Boris.
probably no Trump.
Oh, Trump.
Trump,
Oh.
as in
Oh,
we probably will see him again.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But obviously in the UK, I think I don't know whether we're that. I don't know whether we go down that road again.
No, we
where we see Boris again. But again, if we are sort of 5 years behind what's happening in America, we will produce another person like this.
Absolutely.
And so the question is as to whether the political parties are going to be resilient enough.
Yeah.
To stop that from happening and to stop someone like that rising all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
And I guess it's all in the news. We're well aware of his sort of character flaws. I think the difficulty becomes when you are a party who wants to win and who wants to stay in power. You then choosing someone who is electable, and what is electable now and what was electable 10 years ago are two very different things.
Very true.
So I think that there are a couple of challenges there for us, and obviously this then points to who's next, because they're probably going to take the Conservative Party into the next general election.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because that's probably the big, I don't know if that's exciting or so saddening, but
It depends.
one of them
It depends who.
one of them has to lead, right?
Yeah.
I was going to talk about what the top moments are over the last three days.
Yeah.
2 days really. But I guess for me, there's so many. But number one has to be Nadine.
Oh yeah, yep. 100%. That is great. It's like, oh, give me a promotion, and then I'll tell you need to leave.
I could not believe
that was
it.
great. That was great.
But he puts himself in such a great position because he didn't resign. He puts himself in a position where Johnson has to fire him.
Yes, correct.
Which is a great start of a leadership.
100%.
That's why I was like, this is like a master stroke. Like this is brilliant. There's that. There's of course that odd joint letter. Did you see that? From Kemi, so he calls his minister and a couple of other people just like they like all signed the letter together
to say
the thing is,
you need to
their
resign.
Departments aren't even closely related or anything.
No,
So it's just a bit random.
No, and also what was interesting about that is they didn't resign. You see, and it's like trying to have your cake and eat it. It's like, okay, cool. We're gonna distance ourselves, but not too much in case you stay. Yeah. No, I agree. I think.
What's your top moment?
Oh man, my top moment over the past. I think I don't know if you saw his G7 interview. After Oliver Dowden resignation, and he said no, I'm gonna carry on. Like that for me, when you're faced with that level of adversity, I think I don't even know what your team tells you to say when you're in front of the media.
Yeah.
And clearly, I thought he would sort of back down and go, okay, obviously when I get back, we need to reassess the situation, blah, blah. No white flag, no sense of, and I do think there is a level of delusion that you have to have to be in office and to go around and to be the minister. I think what we've had is a much higher concentration of deludedness, which has now got to the point where it's like, oh no, actually, this is really
like he's actually like it's getting to megalomaniac levels.
100%. And to the point where even last night, I'm pretty sure obviously the story is because we're obviously the day that he's resigned, but literally the day before that, it was not his intention when he went to bed.
He was planning a reshuffle. Like he was going to announce this morning, like a cabinet reshuffle.
100%. And let's carry on.
Let's carry on.
Let's carry on.
Which is just wild. Like,
but I think what had happened is obviously, he had way too many positions to fill. Number one, I think, I think I even messaged you yesterday and said Gove going was a big deal. I think
big time.
Considering Gove is the brain and, and is able to corral so many different people. Yeah. I think that's, him going was the last straw. I think, and I don't know whether Liz or Rob would have gone.
Dominic Raab, he I have nothing to say.
No, I mean, this is it. I think he's just been very quiet, hasn't he? No one really,
Well, he's ruled himself out of the leadership race now.
Which is obviously he's playing the long game, right? He's got like another 20 years in him. So
potentially, if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, if he plays his cards right, he's got another 20 years.
Although I don't know why. So if he was to be like kind of the caretaker prime minister, then it makes sense that he would rule himself out. Yeah. Rule himself out. I'm pretty convinced that Dominic Raab has reached his political peak, mainly because of how closely associated he is with Boris Johnson. I think the same thing's true of, say, Nadine Dorries. Like, she's done. I don't know what she can do after this. Jacob Rees-Mogg, strange man. But of course, again, just the blind loyalty and support. The fact that he's one of the people that stay the longest. Who else have you got who are closely tied to him?
I mean, Liz Truss will probably
Liz Truss. Same, but people like the Conservative membership like her, so it's a bit tricky. But anyways, all these people clearly can't be leader right now. I don't think. Nor can they in the. I just don't see how they move past being known for you're the part of that group that tried to thwart democracy. Essentially, that group that almost pushed us to the brink of a constitutional crisis. So if we move them to the side, and I generally think it's worth moving them to the side. Who's your money on?
Yeah, it's tough. I think obviously, without sounding, pretentious, obviously Rishi was the front runner before this, right? For very obvious reasons.
And explain to me because I don't really get it.
So I think the reason he was a front runner is because he was a chancellor through the pandemic, and
which meant he wasn't really chancellor.
Would you say? Yes, you're right. However, obviously even by international standards, right? Yeah. The support that was given to absolutely everyone was right to the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you think about it, he was able to take all of that sort of praise, 100%, as being the sort of savior in some senses. So you have that. I think also he's quite likable on screen. People really like him.
What part is it? The part that he doesn't pay proper tax? Is it the non-dom status? The fact that he wants to become an American citizen?
Well, this is
the fact that he's married to a daughter of a billionaire.
Exactly.
But it claims to understand what people are going. What part do you think people like?
So I think he's been dramatically tainted through genuinely.
Yeah.
Through all of these things, and also the fact that he's had and people will debate this, but no choice really, but to start to reclaim some of that money from COVID, and so. I think he's in a really tough position where, obviously something which for me is very obvious, especially if you're the chancellor, surely, you would make sure that all of your family members are paying the appropriate tax.
I just think it's so wild.
It's so crazy. And I can imagine it's something that was overlooked. Or maybe that, he thought, oh, well, no one's gonna understand it, or no one's gonna find this out. But I think the most important thing for me is actually the fact that he didn't resign early enough. I think he stayed on for way too long, and even after the no confidence vote, should have made a move. I think that's deeply tainted him. I think he stayed for too long. The same thing with Sajid. I think he stayed for too long as well.
Well, Sajid is also. I mean, he couldn't be leader because he doesn't command like enough of. Yeah. Enough MPs to get behind him. Yeah, right? That's
true.
But also, he's done everything.
Yeah, he has.
He's legit.
Well,
had every
he hasn't
role.
been foreign sec though.
Well, he's been chancellor.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, they could find a role for him as foreign sec. But a part of me wonders whether he's tired as well of kind of just doing all these different jobs, but never getting the top job.
Yeah. And so I think we can move Rishi to the side to say probably not because he's just too unpopular. And again, if we're currently, and this is a very important thing, I think there'll be a couple of things that will dictate, who actually ends up on the shortlist, let alone the actual leader. Obviously, we're going for a cost of living crisis now. And so already you can just see the media angle right there, which is okay, great, you great billionaire. Like, what are you going to do for all these really,
he would be more
people
at debates.
100%. And so I don't think him. I agree with you with Sajid. I think he will try. I really like Sajid. Like, I really do. But anyway, so I think obviously there's been loads of polls that have gone around over the past week. YouGov obviously released their poll today that has Ben Wallace right at the start.
Co-founded by Nadine's,
100%.
I'll never get the second name right. Yeah, so I can show you actually.
Yeah, go on.
So Ben Wallace is number one, as
yes,
you said.
he is. Yes.
Which 13%, which is quite interesting.
Well, so this is the thing. I think this is all about. We need a safe pair of hands to steady the ship.
Yeah.
And Ben Wallace,
a sort of Trump to Biden
100%
thing.
I definitely
Defense
think
Secretary
has done really good job
really
with,
good stuff.
with Ukraine.
He apparently was one of the people that went to collect Princess Diana's body from Paris.
Army has the background.
Yeah.
Needs to take us through this really difficult period of this sort of looming economic recession.
Or will be leader for 2 years and then we'll get rid of him before the general election.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be really sad though, wouldn't it? That's definitely caretaker vibes right there. Definitely. So and again, because I think that's a bit difficult. So obviously Liz Truss is next, I think she is.
No, there's this lovely young lady who was part of the kind of young conservatives called Penny Mordaunt.
Oh, sorry. Penny Mordaunt, excuse me. Minister.
She's 12%.
Yeah.
I don't know much about her.
So she used to be
I read up about her,
the Secretary of State for International Development. Really? She's now the Minister of State for Trade.
Yeah.
Again, that would be a very interesting move by the Conservatives. Obviously, quite a young woman.
Yeah.
Again, my question here is how electable are they?
This is the thing. They don't need to be electable.
Yeah.
They just need to win over the Conservative membership.
Yeah.
I think they've got a few years before the next general election, provided there's no snap election called. So there's enough time
please
to...
no.
Please
don't do that.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I just please no, let's just carry on. I don't have it in me to go through. So they still have a few years to kind of work on a vision for the country because it is a tough sell. We've been in power for 12 years. Trust us, well, at the stage it'll be 14 years or 15 years almost.
Yeah.
Trust us with 5 more years.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Why?
So you really have to build it, and then
and
really...
now you've got a reasonable opposition. I would probably say, like, you've got somewhat of a reasonable opposition
if he stays.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's
he could.
thing.
For folks listening, this week apparently it's imminent.
Yes,
him receiving this fine or no fine.
Yeah.
And obviously he promised that he would leave if he got a fine. So if he got a fine, he's got to go.
Yes.
Interesting to see what would happen.
Yes, of course.
It's Angela Rayner essentially that
basically.
Which
yeah. So I think that's. Yeah, and I was quite surprised by the YouGov poll, to be honest with you. They weren't...
Likewise.
Yeah.
Because after that, you got Rishi, then you got Liz Truss, and then you got Michael Gove and 7%.
So
there's a few folks in that 7% bracket. You got Michael Gove, you got Dominic Raab, Jeremy Hunt is still there, Nadine Zahawi, again, Sajid Javid is in the 4%, and then Priti Patel... right at the end with 3%. Actually,
why did you have to emphasize that?
Right
at the end.
She's not. Steve Barclay is at the end.
I think
who swears apparently that all these colleagues are imploring him to run, that he has to run.
Interesting.
And I was like, sure.
Yeah. And obviously, all of those still have to come out and say that they're actually going to do a leadership. But
Suella's, she's jumped out.
She's jumped out very early, by the way.
Super early. I was like, was it early this morning or yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Like, I'll be running. It'll be a pleasure. I was like, whoa.
Like,
Sure, there's a lot happening now. Exactly. I need to slow down. I was like, let's get through
and also
the fire that's going on.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then let's talk about your leadership.
100%. I was very surprised by that, but I guess I was very surprised by that. But I think one of the things that's going to be really interesting is, so for me, I think there are a couple of things which are going to determine the shortlist. So I think one is going to be the affiliation to Boris Johnson. I think that's obviously going to be something which MPs are going to be thinking about, because political parties tend to sort of flip between one side leadership to another.
Yeah.
So if you were sort of closely affiliated, like we talked about, probably not. We need a statement, like some level of stateswoman or statewoman.
Yeah.
Some level of statement or womanship, because the reality is we need to create new trade deals. And that's going to be a huge part of the sort of next 2 years.
Big time. That's how we grow our way out of this cost of living, so on and so forth.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
War in Ukraine is also very live, which we keep forgetting. So obviously those are two things that really need to happen. We're talking about in the next general election, of course, they're going to be, we have the 2019ers who are very new sort of conservative MPs in very fragile seats who are going to need a huge amount of support. So I think MPs are going to be thinking about quite a few of these different things to get them to the next stage, where obviously it goes to the Conservative membership, where they then choose who the actual leader is going to be, and those will be two people.
I totally agree. I think we will see that flip. It is the case, that once we've had someone that leans heavy one way, we get the other. Trump and Biden's a great example. So I do think we'll move to an era of let's get politics out of people's lives. Like, let's go back to just actually being able to live our lives, and like the nerds worry about politics. I don't have to day in, day out. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to day in, day out wonder what Boris Johnson's doing. So with that being said, my money really is on a Ben Wallace. Or Rishi Sunak, I would think. I think Rishi, for all these glitzing, I mean, he is pretty boring and straightforward, I would say. Yeah. But again, I don't mind that. I am done with like who's the most entertaining in the pack.
I was going to say we've just come out of entertainment central.
Yeah, let's leave that. Let's leave that for a while. Okay, here's something to think about, and what I want our listeners and viewers to think about as we move forward is. So, what's the lasting impact and legacy of Boris Johnson? We're coming to the end of this particular podcast. I wanted it to be short because I know we can speak forever, but I want it to be focused. So what is his impact, and how because there's no doubt he has changed British politics, how it's going to be done, how it's going to be conducted. Even PMQs, like he's changed so much. What do you think his legacy is? And even if we do have this caretaker or more placid, whatever you want to call it, leader, they still will be inheriting the office he just kind of spent time jazzing up, so to speak. So thoughts on that?
So I think what he's really done for me for politics. So I'll talk about the sort of population side first.
Yeah.
Which really, really like disenfranchised a lot of people in terms of people who, were vaguely interested in politics, just think like are now also on the side of what is this? Like, is this really what democracy has got to give us? So I think that number one. I think number two, he's shown and it's probably to your point, that the system can be used to push through things that might not necessarily have been able to be pushed through before. So the program of Parliament, for example, that for me is a famous example of how the system can be manipulated to really sort of achieve political goals, which clearly is not what the system is there to do. It's there really to scrutinize and to get the best possible outcome out of it. So I think there's that. I think specifically on Boris, I'm really hoping that he doesn't. I'm really hoping that this doesn't create a sort of sense that you have to be this showman in politics, because the problem with it is, and I'll say this, I don't know if you agree, but he's obviously really intelligent, right? That's how he's got to where he's got to. That's the reason why he's able to do what he's got to do. However, I think it's got to the point where this show or this has gone too far. And now we're at the point where internationally we look super incompetent. And it's now got us to the point where, I'm really hoping that there isn't some young kid at Oxford or whatever who's like the head of the Conservative Society there who thinks,
I can't wait for my turn.
But it's like, that's what I have to do to be able to get power. And I'm really hoping that that's not the case.
I totally agree. I think my hope is, as you said, as I said at the start, this is an aberration in the system that we go, how do we ensure this never happen this never happens again. Because you're right. One of the things I've been watching PMQs again since I was young. It's weird. I always enjoyed watching it. And I remember growing up, it was a bit hard to follow what's going on. But under Johnson and his premiership, it's led to a stage where I don't even know what truth is, because he just says stuff. And I think what I've seen him do, and what I think dies essentially, is he's clearly gifted when it comes to speaking, when it comes to talking, whatever. And I think he's just rode that to the wheels fall off, essentially. He's like, how do I just bluster and bumble my way through life? And so I think with him, when you kind of poke him, there's really nothing beneath that. It's just all show and spin, and I hope we move past that and get back to a period where maybe people aren't that articulate, but they have this kind of depth of experience. There's something about them, beyond just words and word salads. Like the amount of times he's asked a question and he just says a word salad, and you kind of go, I'm sure he answered it kind of, but he really didn't. I'm hoping we move away from that. One thing he has done is definitely shone a light on all the parts of our current system that we need to go and fix.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it's a much we need stronger conventions. We need to work out what happens if this what happens when someone loses universally the trust of their party, but still wants to stay in government. That's a question we shouldn't wait to test out next time. Let's see, let's work out what's the convention, what's the standards, and I'm hoping again we can put this episode behind us. What's interesting though is everyone who knows him closely, who warned us before he came into politics, was correct. I remember an article written by Max Hastings. He was his editor-in-chief and he was a journalist. He said it. He said, this guy will cheapen, will debase, and will destroy. And we saw him do it whilst he was in government. And now that he's leaving, rather than leave with dignity, he's doing it the exact same way. That's his legacy.
And interestingly, I was listening to as soon as Dominic Cummings left, number 10. I
wonder what Dom's doing right now.
I know. Oh my God! Did you not see him tweet this morning where he said something like, "What's taking so long?" He's even he's taking way too long to give this speech. He's buying time, no dignity whatsoever. So yeah, I think and so one of the things that Dom said was, he wants to be liked. And if if you understand from that perspective, you can imagine the last 6 months must have been really difficult for him.
Of course,
because for someone who really did the really hard yards and burnt all types of bridges to get to where he got to, for him, to basically part ways with the brain behind his whole campaign because he wants to be liked, right? Must be really difficult. And so, what's this dream of him, becoming prime minister, as he said when he was a little kid in Eton, has now sort of faded. I feel sorry for him. I do. I've got some level of empathy. Like today, when I watched his speech, I was like, wow, it's really sad actually. But
I don't feel sorry for him at all.
Have some empathy.
No, I mean, sure. But what we must remember, and this is how I felt when Theresa May was crying when she left. People was like, oh. And I thought, folks, this is the prime minister. This is, she'll be fine.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
She'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, one thing she wants, she didn't get. Oh, gosh, we better park the bus. People up and down the country have aspirations, things that they want that never happen.
Yeah.
This is just one thing he doesn't get in a life of doing whatever it takes to get whatever he wants.
Yeah, of course.
For that reason, him lasting, hopefully, if he leaves before the autumn, less than Theresa May.
I know.
That's the icing on the cake for me.
I'm sure. I don't know if you've seen, but she's doing a few
these talks, right? Yeah.
It's so funny.
Smiling, she's having so much fun. She's there,
of course, yeah,
living her best life.
Remember that dance? That's what she's doing.
As she runs through the fields of wheat.
Yeah, exactly.
Harry, this was great. Thanks so much for it. We gotta get you back.
Definitely.
Hopefully when things are less tumultuous.
Exactly. And hopefully we don't have to talk about sort of people all the time. We talk about policy.
Come on. Hey, thank you for taking time to watch that video. Here at the Common Sense Network, we thrive on exposing you to different ideas. If you're someone who likes ideas, you like learning new things, hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you're first to hear when we have a new video out.